Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to make sense of corporate filings so you don't have to and hopefully don't fall asleep in the process. Today, we're diving into a proxy statement, which sounds about as thrilling as watching paint dry. But trust me, we'll find some interesting nuggets in here. This isn't just about ticking boxes, it gives a look at what a company thinks is important and how they're trying to get your support for it. We'll be decoding Mobileye Global's latest filing. They want you as a stockholder to vote on some key decisions, from who sits on the board to how executives get paid. Let's get started. Scroll Notice of Q25 Annual Stockholders Meeting. First off, the main event is Mobileye's annual stockholders meeting in June of 2025. They're asking for your vote on a few key items, including electing directors, approving their accounting firm, giving an advisory vote on executive pay, and approving changes to their stock incentive plan. It's like a school election, but with more zeros. Scroll Proxy Cavill election of directors scroll. Let's jump into who Mobileye wants on their board. They've got 8 nominees, including 4 independent directors and their CEO. Amnon Shashua. It looks like Patrick Gelsinger resigned as chair and Christine Pambianchi is stepping down as a director and compensation committee chair. Sefyeboa Amenkwa is now the chair of the board. Scroll Amnon Shashua. Among the nominees is Amnon Shashua, who is the CEO and co-founder. Seems like he's not just running Mobileye, but also has his hands in a bunch of other AI and tech startups. He's got a long history with the company, a bunch of patents, and plenty of awards. Scroll Sefyeboa Amenkwa Keskroya Sefyeboa Amenkwa, currently a senior vice president at Intel, who has now been tapped as board chair. He used to be a big shot at McKinsey, advising tech companies. Another key name is Patrick Bombach, who has been working at Intel since 2014. He is currently corporate legal and assistant corporate secretary. Elaine Chao has a distinguished career in government leadership as Secretary of Transportation and Secretary of Labor. The board has determined that Elaine Chao Ialdeshe, Claire McCaskill, and Frank Yeary are independent, meaning they don't have relationships that would mess with their judgment as directors. Scroll 96 quested average attendance scroll. The report also notes that, on average, directors attended 96% of their board and committee meetings, so they're showing up for the job. Scroll Proposal 2, Keller ratification of selection of independent registered public accounting firm. Scroll moving on. The next proposal is about ratifying their choice of Kesselman & Kesselman, a member firm of PricewaterhouseCoopers International Limited, as their independent accounting firm for this year. The audit committee is in charge of hiring and overseeing PwC, and they believe that keeping them around is in Mobileye's best interest. Here is an overview of PwC's fees for the last couple of years, which gives us a sense of how much Mobileye is relying on PwC's services. In 2024, audit fees were about $1.6 million, down from $2.5 million the previous year. It seems that PwC fees have decreased a bit, which is interesting. Audit-related fees were at $307,000 compared to $250,000 the year before. Tax fees also went down from roughly $282,000 to about $102,000 in Scroll Proposal 3 Cabinet Advisory Vote on executive compensation. This is where stockholders get to give a thumbs up or down on how the top executives are being paid. It is an advisory vote, so the company doesn't necessarily have to follow it. According to the filing, their pay programs are structured to align the interests of executives with those of stockholders, using metrics they believe drive long-term success. They hired compensation advisory partners to give the compensation committee information, analysis, and advice in assessing executive officer and director compensation. To figure out how much to pay their executives, Mobileye compares itself to a peer group of 17 companies like Ansys, Cloudflare, Datadog, and MongoDB. The aim is to provide competitive compensation in line with the market. Digging into what executives actually get, we're talking base salaries and equity compensation, mostly in the form of restricted stock units, RSUs. Scroll now to 2024 base salary scroll table. Shows us the base salaries for the top folks. CEO Amnon Shashua made $725,801, mostly the same as the year before. However, Moran Shimesh-Rogensky, the CFO, got a significant bump with her base salary jumping 31% to $276,493, and Nimrod Nehustan got a 26% increase. Digging into the stock awards, CEO Amnon Shashua was granted about $13.8 million in stock awards, and Shai Shalev-Shwartz, the Chief Technology Officer, got about $9.7 million. That's where the big bucks are, aligning their success with the stock price. This section shows all unvested stock awards, with CEO Amnon Shashua's unvested stock awards totaling about $43 million. He's clearly betting on Mobileye's future success. Then we get to the stock vested table, which shows what the executives cashed in during 2024. Amnon Shashua vested in shares worth almost $4 million. And Shai Shalev-Shwartz had shares vest worth nearly $6.7 million, and Shai Shalev-Shwartz had shares vest worth nearly $6.7 million. That's real money changing hands. There is a breakdown of what each executive would get if they were terminated or if there was a change in control of the company. For instance, under certain conditions, Amnon Shashua could get a package worth over $45 million. This section, required by the SEC, shows the relationship between executive compensation and company performance. Let's dive in. In 2024, the CEO's total compensation was about $15 million. But remember, compensation actually paid, which includes changes in the value of equity, was a whopping $44 million. Meanwhile, the average compensation for non-CEO executives was about $329 million, but the actual compensation for non-CEO executives was about $13 million. It seems that the equity is really doing the heavy lifting here. Scroll the value of initial fixed $100 CAPU in $1.20, invested Bastero in 20 cents in Mobileye would be worth about 69.14 cents. Compared to 2015 ton as well as the overall semiconductor sector this year. Also, net income was a loss of $3.09 billion, a loss of $3.09 billion. The table details the compensation for non-employee board members. For example, Elaine Chao got about $33,000 in fees and roughly $443,000 in stock awards. Proposal for approval of the amended scroll. Finally, stockholders are being asked to approve an updated version of their equity incentive plan, which basically lets them issue more stock to employees. They want to increase the number of shares available for issuance under their equity incentive plan in order to meet their anticipated equity compensation needs for the next 3 years. They're asking to bump up the share limit to 153.2 million shares of Class A common stock. It seems that their 3-year average burn rate is 1.4%, which they say is low for their peer group. Their burn rate is the rate at which they're using up their stock options. Scroll potential, TAS equity dilution scroll. If this proposal goes through, it could dilute current stockholders by about 13.9%, increasing the total overhang to 17.63%. Overhang is the total percentage of outstanding stock. The rest of this filing is the amended and restated Mobileye Global Inc. 2022 Equity Incentive Plan, which is the legal fine print. There are a number of clauses describing what happens when people commit embezzlement or generally bad acts. Scroll, they have not to vest a scroll, and here is a description of the amounts subject to certain grants. Okay, that was the filling. Chapter T now. What's the takeaway here? Mobileye is at a critical juncture. The company has seen some big executive pay packages, even though key performance indicators have not performed as well as their peers. Plus, they're asking to give themselves even more equity. But they have very prominent board members and a long future ahead of them. The leadership team needs to steer the ship carefully, balance incentivizing their people with delivering value to stockholders. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the corporate world.